Hi, welcome to the Evolving Family Summit. I'm your host, Natalie, and today we have a lovely guest by the name of Afshan Tassler. How are you, Afshan?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you for being here. For those of you who don't know, Afshan is, she's been a conscious parent coach and a holistic life coach for several years now, and you have a son who's a high needs, and you through your struggles and your adversity, you really wanted to create a life where you thrived in the relationship with your child, not just survived it. And through that, you started coaching parents on ways that you yourself have learned. And one of the really cool things that you have a lot of knowledge on is this resistance called anger, or this trigger called anger. And could you tell us a little bit about being angry, that emotion? We know that we have that emotion.
Yes.
But it's often seen negatively. So what can you tell us about what you've learned about anger and how you have helped it on your journey?
Yes. Okay. So first of all, I've had a lot of anger in my life and I've gone from either burying it and holding it inside only for it to bubble up, and then I blow. And so very unhealthy cycles of anger that I've been in, and that a lot of clients that I've worked with have been in and that struggle with. And the challenge with those cycles of either repressing it and pushing it down, or getting really angry and blowing, is that it is very unhealthy for your body. It's very unhealthy for your relationships, and you end up losing a lot of trust and losing that feeling of safety, in your kids as well. And so it's horrible, because then you sit in a pool of guilt and shame, and then that just feeds the cycle. It perpetuates it and feeds that cycle. But eventually you don't want to sit in that pool of guilt and shame anymore. And then you end up back in anger, because anger is it's like this life force energy in anger. It has more energy to it than sitting in a pool of guilt and shame, which is a much lower vibration energy. It's a mucky gooky energy of guilt and shame, right? Not fun to be in that. So anger. So here's the thing. Many of us are really challenged by anger. Like you said, we've been taught that it's bad, it's negative, that we should not express it, that we should hold it in. And yes, when we express it in the form of rage, it's very unhealthy. But what most of us haven't learned is that there is a healthy way of expressing anger. And so that's a lot of the work that I do. And as parents, like most of us who come to coaching, why do we come? Because either we keep getting angry at our children and we're tired of it, and we don't want it to be that way anymore, or like we find ourselves having a hard time coping with everything, right? And we're surviving versus thriving, and we don't want it to be that way. We want to be able to love our children, and we want to be able to have joy with them, and feel a sense of freedom, right? Who feels freedom as a parent? Not very many people. We feel like our freedom's taken away. So anger is something I work on a lot with clients. So the thing is that it's really about shifting to healthy expressions of anger. So how do you take anger bubbling up and change the pattern that you're in, and to really express it in a healthy way? Because anger is an emotion, and an emotion is energy in motion. And we are evolutionarily wired to have anger. So it's meant to be there. It's meant to bubble up, come up. It's a physical body response. It's a mind response too. But then we have this physical, visceral response that comes out with anger, where we start to clench our jaw, and, maybe our hands turn into fists, and our neck gets really tight, and our face gets hot, So there's like a physical response happening. And then if we don't kind of get control of that physical response happening, then it can often turn into yelling and screaming at our kids. And the kids on the receiving end of receiving that yelling and screaming then don't feel safe anymore, and feel then they don't trust us anymore, and then they don't want to listen to us anymore either. So it's like a brutal cycle.
Or they are fearful, or we teach them that we kind of teach them it's okay for someone to yell at them, and we don't want that. We
Yes,
don't
so they learn unhealthy ways, exactly. They learn unhealthy ways to be with and process their own anger too. So that can often come from us. Now, there's a lot of parents who say, well, I don't yell and scream at my kid, but they have all this anger towards me. So then I would challenge in that, well, you may not be yelling and screaming, but are you talking like this? You know, or how's your tone of voice? What's your energy like? Are you saying things like, why do you keep doing that? Why do you keep doing that? Like, what, how does that feel when I say
yeah.
that, right? They read energy, kids read energy more than they read words, and the tone of voice. So it doesn't have to be like yelling, screaming, and rage, but it can be this sort of like, you know, passive aggressive kind of anger.
Yes.
A lot. And that's also really unhealthy. But with kids, they'll just take it and express it 10 times, tenfold back onto you, you know? So they do learn from us. So the key with anger is really learning a healthy way to be with and process anger in the moment. So being able to, the anger is an energy in motion. It has a message behind it, just like all of our emotions do.
Yes.
And so, you know, because anger has been so shunned societally, culturally, you know, by our families, when we got angry when we were kids, what happened? We either were, you know, not loved or yelled at back or not accepted.
Yeah.
Or disconnected, our parents
Yeah.
disconnected from us. I'm not going to talk
Yes.
to you if you're like that, right? And so we learn those things and we pass them forward. So now as adults, we have a choice. You know, if we don't want to keep getting angry, keep going, you know, having those same patterns expressed upon our children, then we have a choice now to really learn a new healthy way to be with anger.
Yeah, break that cycle, right? And
Yes.
as you said, have a healthy way of expressing that anger, because it's okay to be angry. And I love that you said it's part of our DNA, our evolutionary process to be angry. That's part of life. It has a lot of energy to it, which could be used detrimentally, as we just said, or it could be used in a healthy way. So how do we break that cycle, and how do we start using it in a healthy way?
Yes. Okay. So to use it in a healthy way is to first not repress it and shut it down, and not to shut it down in your children either. Because when we do that, that very strong energy gets trapped in our bodies, and we have this like major intense energy. And then we have the freeze system coming on saying, shut it down, shut it down. And then that turns into anxiety or depression down the road. So with all emotions, including anger, we want to be our child to be able to express that. And for us to be able to really allow it to come up. And the key for parents, though, for it to not take over and to not let your higher thinking brain go offline, is to really notice the feeling before it gets to that place, right? Of really blowing, where you're going to blow and yell and scream at them. So the way that so it's really about changing our relationship to anger. So first of all, not seeing it as something that's bad, that it's, you know, part of our wiring. It's a message. There's a message behind it. So really trying to get to the message behind it and understand, and then also understand the triggers that are constantly making you angry, and really healing those triggers, right? So first, what I work sort of from a bottom up and a top down approach. So bottom up is the body response to anger. So how do you get a hold of that body response first when you're starting to feel really angry? The top down approach is really about working on your beliefs, your belief systems. So you're triggered because you're believing that your child should not behave this way. So you're in resistance to what your child is doing, right? And how your child is behaving or what they're saying. You're in resistance versus acceptance. And when we're in resistance, then to what is, you know, what is happening in front of us is, and when we're in resistance to that, then, you know, the anger builds even more. So to really come into first, like, acceptance of whatever is happening, so that you can fully accept your child for all parts of them. You know, their angry parts, their good parts, their obedient parts. Like, you want to accept your child for all of them. You want to accept yourself for all of you. So those are like the top down things that you can work on, you know, on your own when you have your own time. But in the moment, the bottom up things that you want to work on, like that body response, can really take over, right? And before you know it, you're back in that cycle of expressing a lot of anger towards your kids and saying things that can be so nasty, right? Like we don't, and then we feel horrible for the words that come out of our mouths after. So what I do is I hack into that body response. So what's happening when you're angry or when your child is angry is that you're not feeling safe. You're feeling threatened. You're in a place of fear. You're not feeling safe. So when you're not in safe, your nervous system goes into fight, flight, or freeze, depending on what your tendency tends to be. So if you're going to get really angry.
Yeah. And I just want to clarify, when you say you don't feel safe, like some people may not really understand that, but it really is I like how you said it comes from a place of fear. So there's something that you are afraid of, which is another way of saying safe, but just so that the listening people understand it's something that you're fearful of happening or not happening or might be happening. You're coming from that place of fear.
Exactly.
And then you operate from it.
Right. And the fear is you are being threatened by your child's behavior. You're feeling threatened by your child's behavior, and you're fearful that they're not doing what they need to be doing or acting the way they need to be acting. And that all comes from belief systems that you need to work on in order to not react to your child. So if you have a belief system that good children listen, because you got a lot of praise for listening, right? And you got a lot of, anger and disconnection for not listening, right? Then you have this belief system in you. However, when a child is getting angry, they're not feeling safe either. Like, if you're getting angry, your nervous system is not in safety zone anymore. It's in fight, flight, or freeze. Okay, so you're having a body response, a nervous system response that is not in safety. And when your child is angry, same thing. They're having a nervous system response. It's not in safety. So if we actually got curious and went, okay, why am I not feeling safe right now? I'm getting angry. That must mean I'm not feeling safe. Okay, that's my belief system. If I'm angry, I'm not feeling safe. Let's go deeper. What's underneath that? My child's angry. They're not feeling safe. What's going deeper? What's really behind all this anger outbursts that are coming out? Let's go deeper. Let's get curious. Let's go into that. So, but in the moment.
Yeah. So the first step is to be aware of that.
So be aware that, and that's really shifting a lens, right? Through the way in which we see anger. Instead of seeing anger as a bad thing, we can see anger as a lack of safety. You're not feeling safe. You're in a state of fear and about something. And anger is the protector that comes up to protect you from whatever you're feeling fearful of. So if your child is, not great with transitions and they get angry every time you ask them to transition, well, maybe there's something they're fearing about next, maybe it's the next thing, whether if it's going to school or even going up to bed means that, oh, tomorrow's a new day that I got to muster up my energy to get to school, and so it's really looking at the underlying. There's always, fear and anxiety underneath anger. So really looking at getting curious about it and shifting the lens of the way in which you see anger. It's a nervous system response to threat. It's there to protect you. You're getting angry at your child because you're feeling threatened. So anger comes up to protect you, to draw a boundary, to keep you safe, right? And we need it. We have a reward center in our brain for anger. Why would we have a reward center? Because it's there for protective reasons. But when we learn, ill patterns, negative patterns of the way to deal with anger, then that's not healthy. What we want to learn is healthy ways to be with it. Notice the anger when it comes up and really, again, change the lens that, okay, I'm not feeling safe, or my child is not feeling safe. What's going on? And really in the moment, breathing, right? Like I think almost every coach says this now because this has all come out of the mindfulness movement. Breathing in the moment, where I often recommend something called vagus nerve breathing. So our vagus nerve it's known as the wandering nerve. It's the nerve that goes from your brain and it innervates all of your organ systems and your nervous system. So what happens is that when you breathe, the way to hack our autonomic nervous system, it's an automatic response that anger is coming up. It's automatic. The way to hack that system is to do this vagus nerve breathing, where you do a longer out breath than the in breath. So you can do 4 counts in, 6 counts out, or 8 counts out even.
Mm.
And you can breathe out your mouth or your nose. But the key is to start to breathe in that way. Your vagus nerve gets activated and it tells your body, okay, we're safe in the face of this stress. We're safe in the face of this stress. And then that body message goes up to your brain and allows your brain to come back into your higher thinking brain to come back
Yes.
online, so that you can think straight and actually be with the anger, and then think straight, like, okay, what does this anger want me to do? Why am I angry? What does it want me to do? And then how can I respond in a better way to this? Versus anger meets anger and boom, it's a blow up.
Yeah, that doesn't work. The whole anger meets anger, it doesn't work. So I love that, first of all, you're saying to be mindful and aware of it. And I love that you've clarified that breathing really does hack that system so that you can take yourself almost outside of your body in a way and just get retapped into what's happening in your mind, or reconnect your mind.
And so, okay, so that works a lot of the time for many people. For some people, it doesn't. When you're so angry and it's really taking you over, and then you're breathing, but then you're breathing in this angry way, and you're like, trying to, but then all of a sudden, boom, and I've been there, so I know. Yeah. So what the other, practice that I've really brought in to my work for myself is self-compassion. And the reason why I bring in self-compassion is that it really, really works. Like when in your moment, you're feeling so angry and you put your hand on your heart and you say, I'm so angry. Like, this is a tough moment for me. And this is hard for me. I don't know what to do. I don't like it. I don't like feeling out of control, with my children. And you start to admit to yourself and you give yourself love and compassion. You are actually rewiring your whole response to anger by doing that. And if you do that consistently, you're activating the self-care network in your brain. And you're literally giving yourself a different experience with anger in that moment and in those moments, which eventually becomes wired into you. So I do this all the time because I know that if I get angry, my kid is going to get even more angry, and then we're going to be in it for an hour, and it's just messy, and I'm exhausted by the end of it. So what I do is I when I was young and got angry, I was met with an angry response, right? So that's how I learned it. So how do you really change that wiring in your brain and your nervous system? You meet it with a self-compassionate response, which is very opposite from what you probably ever got growing up. And when you can do that for yourself and you can come back into your heart, you can align your energy back into a heart-centered place, and then you can really be there for your child's moment of, unsafety that he's having or she's having with their anger.
Yeah, I love that because, and you just said, like, when you have that compassion for yourself in that moment, because normally you don't, as you said, normally what happens for some people, and I know this of myself too, I feel guilty, and we talked about this is the cycle. You then feel guilty and then almost angry at yourself for even getting angry.
Yes.
And then if you start to create this new way of being with anger, then, as you said, you reconnect the brain to have that new experience, and you do it consistently, like you said.
Yes.
You can actually really start to have a more healthy perspective and healthy experience of it.
Totally.
Now, is this something that you could, how can you best model this? Because can you just easily model this with your kids? Because your kid is
yes, 100%. So first of all, as parents, we all got to let go of the belief that we cannot show our emotions to our children. Like, it's just not, what we can do is show our emotions to our children in a healthy way. Yes, I agree with, try your best not to show your ugliest moments. But if you do, you can always do repair. And then that's how you model to your children, right? As we know, like, you apologize and you say, that must have been scary for you. And, mommy's going to try really hard not to do that again. And then really not sit in guilt and shame about it, because that just creates a whole boatload of negative energy that's not needed. So really, you know, to be able to model it to our children is that if you're noticed, so what happens with me is that now, instead of me getting, my, as soon as I notice the anger coming up, I say to my son, my body is starting to feel like this. You know, I show him, because he knows, he understands from body language better than if I say I'm feeling angry. That will kind of trigger him. I'll say my body's starting to feel like this, and I need to calm myself down because I'm reacting to what you're doing, and you know, I don't like it, and I want to come from a calmer place. So I'm just going to breathe right now. And so then I breathe, and you know, and then he'll also remind me too. He'll say, "Mommy, I don't, you know, why are you talking to me in that tone of voice?" And so that is a great reminder for me to say, I am talking in that tone of voice. I must be angry, you know, if I'm not noticing my own anger. And I say to him, I like that you told me that. Can you tell me that again next time I talk to you in that tone of voice? Because then it helps me to realize that I'm getting into a place of anger, and I don't want to, and I want to, you know, not get like lash out on you.
Yeah.
So there are different ways we can model it. And the greatest way is just to be authentic and real. And, you know, the greatest gift we can give our children is for them to truly become their authentic selves, because that's what makes us the most happy, is when we are our authentic self. And so when we mirror to them that in the face of their most ugliest moments, that we can love and accept them fully, number one. And we can love and accept ourselves fully in our ugliest moments. We are teaching our children to love and accept all parts of them, because that's life. Life is beautiful, life is ugly, and we have beautiful parts, we have ugly parts. And what the challenges come is when we really start to hate our ugly parts. And, you know, like yin and yang, that's life, right? You can't have dark without the light. You can't have light without the dark. And that's the reality of life. That's what we need to teach our children, not perfection of this perfect persona of maintaining our emotions and keeping everything, you know?
Yeah. And I love that, you know, that's the reality. Sometimes we just blow off the handle. Like we just don't have that control. And so sometimes,
like if you didn't get enough sleep, or if you have a chronic illness, or if you have a headache, and things happen, right? Forgive yourself, right? Love yourself anyways. And as you teach yourself to really love yourself for all of the good, bad, and ugly parts, then you can really love your children's good, bad, and ugly parts. And then mirror that to them. They learn through their own mirror neurons in their brain that they can learn, oh, mommy loves me, even though I did this really horrible thing, or I lashed out and I said the F word to her, or whatever it is. Like, mommy still loves me. Oh, okay. Then I can still love myself. You know, it doesn't reinforce their negative behaviors, because they know that that behavior was wrong. Like they know that it was not cool. We don't have to keep reminding them and drilling it into them. What we need to do is love them in the face of all the ugliness. And then they learn to love themselves, and they grow up to be more resilient children. They don't lash out at you as much. You know, they appreciate you more. And you'll get everything back that you've always wanted from your kids, you know?
So I love that piece about modeling it for your kids, so you can teach them those skills. And in that, when you are your true authentic self, you're very transparent. This is life. This is what happens. You show that your vulnerabilities allow them and yourself to be whole and complete. Without pretending that was wrong, or saying that it was wrong to do that.
Exactly. Because from the ugly moments come the learning moments. And if we have all perfection, you're not really going to have much learning. So, you know, that's why as parents, we got to forgive ourselves for those ugly moments, because, you know, on some higher level, you and your child chose this experience with each other, you know, and it's all a learning experience. You wouldn't be here otherwise. It's all for learning and growth. And so, you know, it's to really look at it that way. And if we can sit in a place of self-compassion and love for ourselves, and really learn to love ourselves for all of the, you know, negative parts of us as well, including the angry part of us, then we can learn to love that and accept that in our children, and create more safety for them, which then creates a more resilient nervous system, a more resilient way of dealing with life.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being here, Afshan. It's been wonderful speaking with you. Thank you for being vulnerable and open and honest, And I'm really thankful that we can bring out this emotion in a way that we can turn around and make it a healthy response.
Yes, exactly. Healthy anger. There is such
Yeah,
thing.
beautiful. Love it.
All right. Thank you for having me.
It was wonderful. Have a great one.
Thanks. You too.